You know, some science fiction is all about pure spectacle. We're talking impossible ships, magic tech, and problems that get solved instantly. But then, there are the others, the ones that give us strategy, building their worlds on a foundation of real, plausible constraints. Today, we're going to dissect that difference. We'll explore how grounding a story in real-world engineering can create a narrative that's not just believable, but absolutely brilliant. Okay, let's dive in. So let's start with the big question. Does the science in sci-fi really matter? I mean, it's called science fiction for a reason, right? Well, it turns out the answer to that question kind of defines the whole story you're about to get. It's the difference between, say, watching a really cool fireworks show and playing a high-stakes chess match, where every single piece, every limitation becomes a critical part of the game. At its core, this whole thing comes down to two totally different philosophies. On one hand, you've got the narrative shortcut. This is where magic box solutions just erase problems so the plot can keep moving. But on the other hand, you have the grounded constraint. This is where the limitations aren't an obstacle to the story. They are the story, forcing characters to actually think their way out of a problem instead of just, powering through it. All right, let's start with maybe the biggest challenge in any space story. Just getting off the planet. I mean, overcoming a gravity well is one of the hardest engineering feats you can imagine. But some stories make it look about as easy as backing out of your driveway. Okay, so what's really interesting here is how one approach just deletes all the drama, while the other one creates it. The shortcut, using stuff like inertial dampeners or anti-gravity, basically just waves a magic wand and the problem is gone. But the grounded approach, it turns it into this monumental project, like a space elevator. It's not magic, it's a colossal piece of engineering that's theoretically possible, but wow, staggeringly difficult. And that difficulty, that's where the story lives. And here is the crucial point. That elevator isn't just some cool background detail. It's the entire game board. By grounding the solution in a single massive piece of infrastructure, the story creates an immediate, tangible point of weakness. It's the one road in and out of town. And whoever controls that road, well, they control everything. The constraint itself is what generates all the conflict. Let's keep going, because this philosophy builds on itself. It goes way beyond just getting into space. It's really about how you handle the unknown. Specifically, how a story deals with hyper-advanced alien technology. Is it just going to be another shortcut, or could it be a tool for some serious deception? So, in our grounded example, the aliens show up with this supposed miracle material. They call it tritanium. And their pitch is just incredible. They say it's a quantum-locked lattice that allows for inertial dampening and all these other physics-defying tricks. It's the classic magic box, and they present it as a gift to humanity, a gift that makes these aliens look like actual gods. But here's where the story gets really clever. The truth isn't uncovered in some huge space battle. No, it's found through forensic science. The good guys get their hands on raw samples of the alloy and find these little telltale signs of re-entry scoring and heat ablation. And those are marks that just shouldn't exist if the aliens' magical mirror field tech actually worked the way they said it did. The physics just don't lie. And this just brilliantly pulls the rug out from under you. Tritanium isn't magic at all. It's just a phenomenally advanced heat shield. Yeah, it's impressive for sure, but it operates completely within the known laws of physics. And that one little detail shatters the aliens' godlike image. It proves they can't just float down from orbit. They have to brute force their way through the atmosphere just like we do. And you know what that means? It means they need that space elevator to get home. This one line from the source material just says it all. The aliens weren't building a bridge to lift humanity up to their level. No, they were throwing down a toll line to pull themselves out of a jam, creating total dependence under the guise of being helpful. That's not just a plot twist, that is psychological warfare. So, if you're up against an enemy that's way more advanced and a master of deception, how in the world do you fight back? Well, the lazy shortcut is to just invent some superweapon out of thin air. But the grounded approach? Oh, it's so much more interesting. You weaponize the everyday. The Resistance playbook here is just a masterclass in misdirection. It all starts out in the open, with this celebrated green energy project to build solar farms all over the planet. But hidden inside this totally benevolent act is a secret purpose. Thousands of these heliostat mirrors, the ones designed to track the sun, are all secretly networked together. And the endgame? To turn 500,000 mirrors into one single giant lens, focusing all that sunlight into a weapon that can hit targets in orbit.
This whole plan, they call it the reflection protocol, isn't really about traditional firepower. It's about pure ingenuity. It's a weapon that's literally hidden in plain sight, built right under the enemy's nose by using their own assumptions against them. It turns a nonviolent, publicly praised piece of infrastructure into a devastating offensive tool. That's a strategy rooted in psychological depth, not just raw power.
So let's bring this all together. When you put these two approaches, the shortcut and the grounded constraint, right next to each other, the difference is just stark. Think about it. To get off the planet, you can have anti-gravity, or you can have a vulnerable space elevator that becomes the whole story's focal point. For the alien tech, you can have a magic alloy, or you can have a clever lie that unravels a massive deception. And for the resistance, you can have a generic laser cannon, or an ingenious weapon made out of solar panels. One path is easy, the other is interesting. And that right there is the key takeaway. Embracing scientific and engineering constraints doesn't make a story smaller or less exciting. It does the exact opposite. It forces creativity. It replaces lazy solutions with really clever ones. And it elevates a simple conflict into a complex, super satisfying strategic puzzle. Ultimately, this grounded approach achieves something pretty rare and powerful, a kind of narrative, scientific synergy. Its strength comes from deliberately subverting all those lazy tropes we've seen a million times. By focusing on meticulous detail and plausible strategy, the science doesn't just support the story, it becomes totally inseparable from it.
Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. From faster-than-light travel to artificial gravity and universal translators, what other narrative shortcuts have we all just learned to accept without even questioning them? And what kind of smarter, more strategic stories are just waiting to be told if we start demanding they play by the rules?